Hey, everybody, we are here again with another episode of Roast the Post. And I am bringing to the table this week, it's my turn this week, uh, a job ad which is from the same company as another job ad that we roasted a few weeks ago.
No
So,
way.
Jen, this is from the financial services firm that had the loan consultant job on
Mhm.
post. So, like we talked about in that episode, it would be kind of interesting to find something from their corporate HQ. And I set a filter, lo and behold, I saw something from their corporate HQ, or at least one of their corporate offices, not the head office anyway. What really struck me with this ad is that there's a dual reporting structure in the mix here. And we've talked about dual reporting structures before. So this is for a director of compliance operations role. It's not in the senior leadership of this organization, but it's a pretty serious job. There's a lot of importance attached to it, and it's fairly up the hierarchy within the organization. It's got a dual reporting structure. So this person is going to be reporting to the CCO or Chief Commercial Officer and the CAMLO. I had to look up what CAMLO is because I'd never heard that acronym before. It's the Chief Anti-Money Laundering Officer. So this person is reporting to the senior leadership person whose job it is to make the firm more money, and the person whose job it is to be more picky about whose money they take. I
What
think
was
you can see where I'm going here.
yes? And at first,
There's some tension.
when you said Camelot, I'm like, is he trying to say Camelot? And why would it be Camelot? There were so many questions going through my mind. Can you remind me what the CCO role is? That the Chief Compliance Officer?
Chief Commercial Officer. Chief
Chief
Commercial
Commercial.
Officer. So Chief Commercial Officer in organizations that are kind of structured like this. Tons of organizations have them. The Chief Commercial Officer, their job really is to figure out how to monetize what
Yeah.
the organization does. So this person's job is all about making money, and the CAMLO, Chief Anti-Money Laundering Officer, their job is really to say no to money that comes from kind of dodgy sources. So I found this particularly interesting, and that's why I brought it to the table, because one side's going to be pushing for kind of blurry lines on making money, and the other side's going to be pushing for much sharper lines on what you can and cannot do. There's going to be a tension there. So that
Absolutely.
sets the stage for this week. We'll start off as usual, folks, with the Roasty profile. So the job title is Director, Compliance Operations. They're going to be reporting to both the CCO and the CAMLO in a dual reporting structure. Company size is 1,001 to 5,000 people. The industry that they're in is in financial services. What do they do? Well, personal loans, home improvement loans, debt consolidation loans, mortgages, consumer financing, automobile lending and financing, retail point of sale financing. This is really an alternative lending entity. It's kind of an alt bank in Canada. They do pretty much everything other than consumer depositor accounts. Their head office is in Montreal, Quebec, here in Canada. This job is in the Toronto, Ontario, Canada office, and the organization operates coast to coast in Canada. The job is full-time, permanent, and on-site 5 days a week. Now, we'll start with the structure of the job ad. So this job ad has a number of sections. The first one is a who we are section. Then there's an about the role section. There's a job responsibilities section, and that's broken down into a number of subsections, the first of which is oversight of the compliance operations team, compliance assessments, internal and external reviews, compliance technology, financial crime systems. Then there's another section outside of that called what we're looking for. There's another section called what you'll love about working here. Another section called what you can expect, dash pay and process. And that wraps up the structure of the job posting. So what we're going to do is I have read through this job posting I'm hosting this week. Jen has not seen this job posting yet. We're going to go into some of the things that I found kind of interesting about the job posting and chat about them for a little bit. Then we'll get into scoring. Jen and I will, or we'll get into salary guessing, I should say. Jen will guess what she thinks the salary is going to be for this role, just to put her on the hot seat. We'll take a short break so that Jen can read the job posting. Then we'll get into more of the detailed discussion around things that we both extracted from the job, and we'll wrap up with a scoring of the job. As always, we're going to put a link to the full job post in the show notes so that you can read along if you want to. That'll be on the episode page. Jen, are you ready to roast this post?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, cool. So the first thing I wanted to kind of bring up, and this is kind of a contextual note for the folks at home, in the who we are section, one part that stood out for me is the following. In 2024, subsidiary, and subsidiary became part of the company family of brands alongside company, subsidiary, and subsidiary. So what I wanted to highlight here is that the past couple of years, this organization has been on an acquisition spree. They've been buying up other companies in their kind of industry, whether they're directly competing or not. This is now a house of brands kind of financial organization. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we're going through. Now, the first part that I want to read out and talk about with you, Jen, is pretty much the entire about the role section. So it reads, reporting to the CCO and CAMLO as part of corporate compliance, the mandate of the position is to support the CCO and CAMLO, and deputy CCO and CAMLO to, 1, implement an effective enterprise-wide control framework to mitigate compliance risk, which is designed to meet the company's legislative and regulatory requirements. 2, promote a sound compliance culture. And 3, report to senior management and risk committee of the board. Additionally, responsible for establishing high standards of business conduct and ethical behavior, and for ensuring that internal controls are established to meet ongoing compliance with the company's code of conduct and other internal requirements. So the first thing that kind of stood out with that for me, Jen, and I kind of want you to comment on it, is that dual reporting structure again. This person's going to be directly responsible to both the Chief Commercial Officer and the CAMLO, but we also see in here that they're supporting the Deputy CCO and Deputy CAMLO, and they're really in charge of a whole range of kind of important regulatory compliance type stuff. Do you think that in that structure, there are systemic things which will make their job a little bit more difficult?
I absolutely do. Right off the bat, I'm wondering, these deputies. So both of those roles that this person reports into, they both have their own deputy version of the role, and so I think that they're already, my brain is trying to map like what an escalation path would look like, what feedback and performance management would look like for this role. Is it to the deputies? And if so, which one? Is it to the CAMLO or the CCO? Can they go directly to those people? I mean, they report to those people. I just feel like it's going to be questionable whether or not those deputy roles are going to buffer. Or are they going to be a blocker? Or are they going to support this role in accessing the CAMLO and the CCO? It seems really an odd structure to me. If anything, maybe this role should be reporting to the deputies. But I have no idea. Yeah.
And another thing that kind of stood out for me and related to what you said is like this person who their job is to manage the operations of the regulatory compliance group. Where did their allegiances lie if there's a really serious problem? Like, do they depend on the commercial arm of the organization to kind of sort stuff out? Or do they depend on the regulatory side of the organization if they need to sort stuff out? And like, which mommy do you run to when you have a problem with the other one? Like, how does that all work? That's weird, right?
That is weird, and you made me think too of, and I mentioned it a little bit, but like who who ultimately, like when you have dual reporting structures, ultimately one person has to have that final say. They absolutely must. We talked about this before when we were designing a role for my organization, when we discussed final decision making authority, choosing the final candidate should like lies with, we should name who that person is ultimately, because it's always going to be one person. So it's interesting to me, yeah, what if one of them thinks this person is doing a great job and the other one doesn't, and how does that get sorted? I mean,
And
and
how
there's
do you,
be friction.
yeah, I wonder if that friction or that tension is an inherent part of the system. Because there's definitely going to be a back and forth between like making money and making money the right way,
Yeah.
as far as the regulatory kind of side of it goes. But what happens when it comes time for this person to sit down for their annual performance review, and potentially there's a raise or money attached to that, and what if they've been kind of like swatting the hand of the commercial part of the organization a little bit more than they would like how do they get penalized in their performance review for that? And does their raise or bonus like become smaller or something? Is that a risk? It's something I'd be thinking about.
And what I can say though, and if I remember correctly, both of us had rated the job posting from this company that we've roasted before pretty high,
We did.
because of the level of detail, because of the authenticity, like of the job posting to the role itself. And so what I can say is, this is why we want to see the reporting structure in the job postings. It's exactly this, because then the candidate can think to themselves, well, how will this work? And then they can prepare when they're interviewing for the role. This would be phenomenal questions to bring to the table during the interview. I can tell you right now that there is no world in which I would apply for a job like this, because it would be way too complicated for all of the reasons that we are listing. It would be really, really challenging. It's hard enough to manage one manager's like emotions and the mental load that you have to take on.
Mhm.
Do that for two and maybe even four, because it sounds like there are more people involved. We talk a lot about having to manage up, and this, if you're going to have to do it in this job, good luck to you. But again, really grateful that they're making that clear so people can make informed decisions. And that's what it's all about. That's what we're trying to do here, is help people to understand how to make like the best, most informed decision when they're applying for these roles.
Yeah, and this is kind of another thing to throw into the mix here. One part that I highlighted in the job responsibilities section, there were a couple of bullet points that this person will be responsible for that relate to what we're talking about. The first is the responsibility to generate metrics and analysis to support board management and internal compliance reporting associated to compliance operations activities. So it's not just the CCO and the CAMLO and the deputies that this person's work kind of directly supports and impacts. It's also the board of directors and senior management. Senior management in this context probably means like the CEO and other C-suite executives. So like already this is kind of an escalation of the importance here. And the dual reporting thing, I think maybe it kind of makes a little bit more sense in that context. But if you're reading this bullet point, especially right after the others, it paints this picture of, oh boy, the stakes are going to be really big for your work. How are you going to deal with that?
This sounds like a very serious and critical role. Anytime you have to do kind of board presentations, like you said, things like that, the stakes are higher, everyone who's involved with that. It also brings me back to the reporting structure and makes me wonder why. Like they must have, I assume they have a reason for this. And my biggest question right now is why do they have this dual reporting structure?
Yeah, you have to wonder to yourself, if you step back and take a look at the bigger picture and think about this. So this person is the director of compliance operations. Why are they reporting to the commercial arm of the company at all?
This is it.
Shouldn't there be an arm's length between the commercial arm and the compliance arm?
Maybe they're trying something new, because when you were reading at the beginning, I thought to myself, well, it makes sense for them to report into the CAMLO role,
Yeah.
but it's the commercial side that I'm questioning. So maybe they're trying something new. Maybe they've tried in the past, it didn't work. There's some kind of reason why they have this set up.
Maybe.
Interesting.
Maybe. The other bullet point that kind of stood out for me in job responsibilities was provide SME expertise on program elements of the annual CCO and CAMLO reports. There were a few acronyms in there. SME, subject matter expert, and then CCO and CAMLO, we already covered. You know, one thing about this job posting I found was that there were tons and tons of acronyms all throughout it. Some of them are like financial industry specific ones that you would expect someone who had been working in this industry and, you know, roles of escalating responsibility to just know, because they're in that industry. But some, like SME, not so much. So, you know, kind of for the folks who are writing job descriptions, write out what it is in full first, and then put your acronym in brackets afterwards. It makes it a heck of a lot easier for people who are trying to read through these things to understand what you mean. Like, don't count on their experience to kind of carry them through what you're writing.
We've said this before, and it's so, I mean, I'm guilty of doing it myself. We are so used to our own pattern language within our organizations, even if it is SME, which is something that I would assume most people know. Some people don't. So you really should be writing it all out. And that goes for your resume too. Do that on the other side of things, because people don't know. They just don't. Or maybe they have the same acronym at their organization, but it means something different. Maybe you're offending them. Maybe you're swearing in their company culture language. So just write it all out. Stop using the acronyms.
You know what? As I think of it, maybe in this context, they actually mean Chief Compliance Officer by CCO instead of Chief Commercial Officer. Financial services firms have both roles. Like, there's chief compliance officers a lot of the time, especially in heavily regulated financial services firms. But there are also chief commercial officer roles really frequently.
Does it not say, it doesn't spell it out then? It just
Never.
says, yeah. What? Okay,
Not
so
once.
you made an assumption that it was chief commercial officer.
I made an assumption, but I also did some Googling, some research for this. So I bandied around and was kind of like trying to figure out what they meant by CCO. And a lot of the stuff that I ran into said Chief Commercial Officer. So based on other kind of company websites, job descriptions in this industry saying it's Chief Commercial Officer, I assumed that this was also Chief Commercial Officer. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's Chief Compliance Officer.
I mean, it should be, and it wouldn't surprise me if it were that. However, the fact that we don't even know is wild.
Yep. So we think about this, what we just kind of stumbled across here while we're kind of recording the episode. You know, if there's nothing in the job posting that specifies something that's that important, how is the candidate to know?
Yeah.
Like, I think some candidates would assume that it's Chief Commercial Officer and then stumble across the kind of issues that we've been talking about. Some might assume that it's Chief Compliance Officer and not bring it up. They go into the interview. What happens if it is Chief Commercial Officer? Or if the opposite is true? What if you think it's Chief Commercial Officer, you go in and you find out it's Chief Compliance Officer? That's going to kind of throw a bit of a wrench into like your interview, I think.
Absolutely. It impacts how you prepare for the interview 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. Compliance technology. So there were a couple things that stood out for me in here. The first one is lead the implementation and maintenance of compliance-based systems. Then it says oversee the management of compliance technologies. Then it says act as the primary advisory point of contact with IT business partners. So these things together kind of start to paint a little bit of a picture of a role that is pretty nuanced, and there's a lot going on here. Like you're kind of going to be responsible for developing metrics and reporting and systems and whatnot. Now they're also saying, hey, you're going to be responsible for technology. That seems like a lot to kind of put on one person. So like for me, I would be interested in knowing what the support team is around you for this, because that could get to be a lot, right?
Yeah, what the wording is interesting to me without seeing it in front of me. It lists compliance technology specifically, but it sounds like in one bullet point, they're just saying IT as well.
Mhm.
Is that correct? So just general IT at the company?
Yeah, I would kind of interpret that as, so what the bullet point says is act as the primary advisory point of contact with IT business partners. So that to me kind of suggests that they outsource a lot of their specific technology requirements, and that they might outsource their compliance technology. So this person then's kind of like a project manager, program manager, whatever, and has to work with these external IT business partners. Or maybe they're internal, don't know. But somebody separate from this person and their group. So they're going to be outside of this person's direct kind of contact, but still in their sphere of influence, it sounds a bit like.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, the company I work for, we do have third-party IT service provider, and someone on our leadership team is the point of contact. And I think it's pretty light touch. So I don't know that it's a huge ask. But again, this is a way bigger company than the organization that I'm at currently. So it's hard to say.
Mm. The next set of things that stood out for me under the financial crime system subsection, bullet points are oversee financial crime related rule refinements to core AML systems, and ensure proactive testing and monitoring of data and system functionality. So those two things together, they kind of deepen this story of like IT management within this role, right? And just for context, folks, I'm 99% sure that the acronym AML is anti-money laundering. That seems to fit with the narrative, and my Googling suggested that that was true, but it never actually says it verbatim in the job ad. So we'll just have to go on faith that it means anti-money laundering.
Okay, that was going to be my next question for you. What the heck is AML? But thank you for addressing that. Sounds about right. Based on me knowing absolutely nothing about this industry, sounds bang on.
In the section that they wrote in this job ad called "What We're Looking For," I'm going to read out everything because it's all kind of interesting. It paints a fairly clear picture of the type of person that they want to bring into this role. So the first bullet point is university degree in business or equivalency in related experience, at least 10 years experience with regulated financial services, at least 7 years people management experience, direct experience in AML and regulatory compliance, strong working knowledge of financial regulations, strong research skills, and analytical ability to review and organize large amounts of information and draw appropriate conclusions, capable of growing and succeeding in a fast-paced entrepreneurial environment, ability to consult and partner within all levels of the organization, including senior level officers, proactive with proven ability to multitask while meeting deadlines as required, strong initiative, decision-making, and problem-solving capabilities, excellent communication / interpersonal skills, dealing with highly complex issues and generating both pragmatic and effective solutions. So that's what they're looking for in a candidate. That's pretty detailed. Most that we run across are not that detailed. Does anything stand out for you? What'd you think?
Yeah, I think it's very detailed. I just keep thinking to myself, I would never have the confidence to apply for a role that asks so much. Like maybe I can tick off a few of those boxes, but man, that's asking a lot.
Big role.
What's that?
Big role. It's a big role.
A big role. It's a big role. It's a significant role and a critical role. So I would hope that the pay is very generous for this role because they're asking for a lot. Yeah, people management experience within the, doing the work itself. I think when you're looking at a job description, I don't know if I mean what I'm saying right now, but I'm just going to say it out loud. I think that that's how this works, right? I think
Absolutely.
I think that the most telling part of a job description, and maybe at least for this one, is this section, because it tells you so much about the role. It tells you so much about what you're going to be expected to do, and yet it's also so vague, like fast-paced, entrepreneurial, innovative, blah blah blah. Like 7 years of people management experience. It says so much, and yet it says so little. Like so it's going to be really busy. You're going to be managing people. How many people? Busy in what way? But yeah, it's a mystery that you kind of have to decode and read it along with the rest of the job description. But I do feel like there's so much information in that ideal candidate about you. Like they're telling you what kind of person you need to be to succeed in this environment. And I think what's missing for a lot of these job postings is what they will do to support you in that to be successful. And maybe that comes later because you did mention that there are a few different sections, because it's asking a lot. This is a critical and big, heavy role.
Yeah. In this section too, there are a couple of things in here, like where it says, you need to be capable of growing and succeeding in an entrepreneurial environment. That's one. Another one is strong initiative, decision-making, and problem-solving capabilities. And then it goes into being pragmatic. So you need to deal with highly complex issues and generating pragmatic and effective solutions. Those things make me wonder if CCO actually does mean Chief Commercial Officer, right? Like they kind of pull the narrative back in the other direction and paint this picture of, this is an entrepreneurial organization. This ain't no big six bank that's been around for 100 years. This is small and lean and entrepreneurial. Maybe it is Chief Commercial Officer.
But this is what's interesting to me. You just named something that I want to talk about. How are you expected to, how is it an entrepreneurial environment, and how are you supposed to have like an entrepreneurial mindset when it's not? They just talked about all of these acquisitions. They're not just your mom and pop corner shop where you get your check cashed. Like this is a big organization. So how does this organization, and lots of them put entrepreneurial mindset, but it's like a corporate structure. To me, that's direct conflict. So I wonder what companies mean when they say that. Just like generally, you want someone to be scrappy, but it's a corporation, so you probably have a lot of rigidity and structure, like guardrails in place. So I think that that's interesting because you'd said pragmatic, and yes, you can be pragmatic and you can be entrepreneurial. But like, which one do you go with when you're faced with certain decisions to make, right? Do I get to be the entrepreneurial person, and do I have to be pragmatic about it? Because to me, they are a little bit in conflict with each other.
Yeah, and my kind of take on compliance people, compliance officers, compliance directors, they fulfill extremely important functions in organizations that have the potential to, purposefully or not, cause harm to people or society. Their job is to make sure that the system and the structure that they're working with mitigates the risk of harm to stakeholders, society, whatever else. You do not want compliance people who are entrepreneurial. that doesn't work. Like, when you're entrepreneurially minded, you're an entrepreneur. You think about how to go get the bacon. You don't want a compliance officer in a financial services firm that thinks about how to go get the bacon. That's a bad idea.
Yeah. And I see it as kind of like you're almost building the plane while flying it, or writing the rules as you go. And I don't know that that's the environment to do that. But sometimes I feel like we hear these we hear these terms so often that people just kind of automatically add them to job postings when maybe they mean something else. And I think we kind of forget what that actually means. But again, like, I mean, obviously you don't want to go into the interview and challenge all of these things that they say, but it is something to, it would be a good question to ask. If I were part of the hiring team and somebody asked, like, how do you, or how do people in this role, how have they previously, or how would you expect someone to balance being like entrepreneurial and also pragmatic in the role? Like, to me, that's a really good question to ask during the interview. They might be like, get out of here, don't ask that question. But I think it's a good question. I would want to know how they expect someone to proceed and succeed when those are the requirements.
Yeah, and the regulatory environment in Canada for financial services firms is very rigid. You know, like FinTrack compliance is no easy thing, right? So I think that if you had someone come in who truly was entrepreneurial and, you know, they developed solutions and thought kind of outside the box, and they figured they could come up with something to meet some requirement that FinTrack has set out, they might end up getting their wrist slapped a lot. And it would all kind of dot back to this structural part of the job ad where it said, we want someone who is pragmatic, who is a problem solver, who is entrepreneurial in the way that they think. Sometimes you don't want people who are entrepreneurial in the way that they think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a compliance type role is a certain disposition. It's a certain personality, and that's what that as it should be, I guess, is what I'm saying. So yeah.
Yeah. The next section that I wanted to kind of get into, and this is another one where I'm going to read out the entire section because I think it's interesting. It's what you'll love about working here. Award-winning culture. We're proud to be recognized as a Great Place to Work Canada 2025 and one of Montreal's top employers 2025 by Canada's top 100 employers for the job based in Toronto. Work-life balance. Enjoy flexibility with our hybrid work model designed to support your lifestyle. Time to recharge. Generous vacation based on your role, statutory holidays, plus 6 wellness days to prioritize your well-being. Compensation package. Competitive base salary plus an annual incentive bonus tied to performance. Comprehensive benefits. Robust health and dental coverage through Manulife, as well as virtual healthcare through Dialogue. Future-ready savings. Group retirement savings plan with up to 7% employer match. Exclusive perks. Discounts from top retailers via Work Perks, plus location-based perks like gym membership and Toronto Bike Share. On-site fitness. Gym access at our London and Montreal offices. Continuous growth. Education assistance program and company academy for training and skills development. Family support. Parental leave top-up program to help you during life's big moments. Community impact, 1 paid volunteer day to give back to causes that matter to you. For more information on who we are as an employer, click here. Then I just took out the URL. So there's a lot in there. Did anything stick out for you? Definitely for me, it was like, we're Montreal's top employer, but hey, you're working in Toronto.
And we've talked about those awards in the past too, is that they are, you know, some of them do have a rigorous application process, and sometimes you don't get the award or whatever. But I also think that if you ask anyone who has ever worked at a company that has received those awards, they might be like, oh yeah, that was the worst place I've ever worked, right? Like, it's one of those things that you can, they do it through application process. They do it through employment, employee surveys and things like that. And it is just a snapshot in a moment of time. I don't buy into it too much, but yeah, they list a couple of things that are great at other, like, gym at our London and whatever office, but that's not this office, so you don't get a gym. So just don't list that.
Yep.
Like, just don't put that because the people aren't getting it. Hybrid role. I think the last time we reviewed a role from this org, they were in person, not hybrid. So that's cool. I don't remember you saying it listed how many days a week you were required to be in office.
So that's interesting. So in these bullet points here, it lists hybrid, but in the job classification, it doesn't say hybrid. It says in office.
Interesting. Yeah, so I wonder
Which
what
one's
is,
right?
yeah, what's the truth?
Yeah.
When we see hybrid postings, I like to see how many days a week. That makes a difference to people. Like, regardless of whether or not you have family, it just, at the end of the day, it makes a big difference. Even for me, with, I mean, I have social anxiety issues. Committing to 4 days a week in an office versus 2 days a week is a really big deal. Like, it's gonna change how I feel about a role. I know that may sound wild to some people, but that's just the reality of the situation. That's why I prefer remote 100%. And 7% RSP matching, or some kind of retirement matching, is generous.
It's very.
It's generous, yeah. The vacation was interesting. It said depending on the role, or the role level. That makes me wonder how transparent they are with their vacation packages. Otherwise, they would just list it, and maybe they don't want to because they don't want other people to see how much the higher ups get for
That's
their
a good
vacation.
point.
So that's a little bit secretive there as well. Yeah.
That's a good point, because you know that this is a director level role because you put it in the job posting. It's in the title. Why can't you list out what vacation director level roles get? The only logical reason is that you don't want the people who aren't directors to know. Though anybody who would work closely with a director in the organization would kind of be able to know based on the fact that you are out of the office 5 weeks, whatever. It's kind of weird.
Well, and I think too, for a role like this, that is, we've said it a million times in this one episode, it's a big role, it's a heavy role. You want to sell it a little bit better than that. So maybe do list those types of things, maybe give just a little bit more information. Because other than that, what you'll love about it sounds very much like the loan consultant role. So to me, I'm like, those perks aren't that great. And the reality is, sometimes in some organizations, higher level roles do have more or better or different perks. And so you got to sell it maybe a little bit more, in my opinion.
Yep. Before we go into the next section, we want to hang on to one bullet point that's in here: compensation package, competitive base salary, plus an annual incentive bonus tied to performance. So they list that in this section, which is what you'll love about working here. Now, going into the next section, what you can expect, pay and process. So they listed a base salary, a range. Plus they also said, well, I'll just read it out here. Expected base salary range is blank to blank, because Jen's still got to guess. Plus the opportunity to earn an annual incentive bonus tied to performance. Bit of duplication there in my mind. Why put it in both places? Anyway, the other thing in pay and process here, three more things actually that were kind of notable. This posting is for an existing vacancy within our organization. Artificial intelligence may be used in parts of the recruitment process, and all candidates considered for hire must successfully pass a criminal background check, a credit check, and validation of their work experience to qualify for hire. Now, before we get into guessing the salary band, did anything stick out here? Like, they're following the things they need to, which is good, but what did this say to you?
What does it say to me? Well, I do like that it notes it's an existing vacancy. I'm not surprised that it's an existing vacancy because the job seems a lot, so I'm not surprised about that. They talk about AI, criminal. We talked about this too. Like, for certain roles, criminal record checks are just a requirement. That's just the way that it is. It's interesting that they list like validation of work experience, because that you don't see that listed explicitly in job postings very often. In
Very
fact,
rare this.
right? It's very rare. I'm trying to think of when they actually say that. You would think that that's a given, because if they're going to do a reference check, then they're also at the same time kind of validating your work experience. But yeah, they disclose AI. I don't recall you saying anything about any type of accommodation.
No, they don't actually talk about accommodations. Uh, okay, there is an accommodation statement. So they say company is an equal opportunity employer. Accordingly, we will make reasonable accommodations to respond to the needs of people with disabilities. Individuals who view themselves as Aboriginals, members of visible minorities, and disabled are encouraged to apply in confidence. And verbatim, that's what they wrote. They could have phrased that a little differently.
Listen, I'm not even going to get into the language that they use. I'm not down with that language. I feel like it's a little bit outdated and they need to work accommodation statement. Yikes. Okay, but you asked me what those things tell me. I don't know. What do they tell you?
The thing where the only thing that really stuck out to me here was the you must have the validation of your work experience to qualify for hiring. That really stuck out. Like you said, it's rare. You know, neither one of us has seen that much, if at all, in job postings and job ads. I would kind of tie that back to like the seriousness of this role and kind of the requirements and the responsibilities and the duties that they'll have. And they did say earlier on in the job ad that you need to have, I think it was seven years of people management experience, 10 years of experience in a regulated financial kind of industry position. So, and basically what they're saying is like, you need to know FinTrack, you need to know all of the associated compliance requirements and the legislation and blah, blah, blah. And it makes kind of sense to me that they would want to test your knowledge of that. But with this, what they're doing is they're saying, we're not actually going to test your knowledge of compliance and regulation. We're going to use your work history as a proxy for that. Maybe that's good, maybe it's not. I think that I would kind of lean more towards we're going to validate your knowledge firsthand rather than saying, oh, he worked at, you know, Joe's Bank down the street, so it must be good. That that's weird to me. That stands out to me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That is something that's an outlier. Absolutely.
So let's get into kind of the fun part. We're going to talk about salary. Given what you know about this job role, what we've talked about before, and the fact that your buns are kind of on the hot seat right now, getting warm, what do you think the range that they posted for this was?
I love how you said this is the fun part because it's like my least favorite part.
My favorite part. I love it when you're in the hot seat.
I cannot stand guessing the salary. I just have no idea. I don't know if I've been living under a rock or what. But I rely so much when I'm creating salary bands at work on data. I do a lot of research when I'm figuring out a salary band. So to not be able to access that, and there's no cheating, like I'm not Googling or anything like that. I do remember from the previous posting that the salary, it wasn't bad. Like it was an hourly rate, I believe, for the loan consultant role. And it wasn't bad. I think we were both like impressed with that. So given that this is in Toronto and this is a senior leadership role, a director role, I'm going, but then again, nobody ever pays what they should be paying for roles. So I need to take that into consideration as well. I'm just rambling so that I don't have to answer did I answer the question for you? No. I'm going to be like a little bit, I'm going to dial it back a little bit and say a range of like 165 to 180.
You are the most generous person in the room and this job posting. So they posted a range of 120 to 150, plus the opportunity to earn an annual incentive bonus tied to performance. Now, there's nothing about the calculation of that. There's no sense of what that bonus could be. So maybe the bonus could get them up to where you're at, but no, you are more generous than they are.
That's interesting to me because again, like what are the things I'm thinking about? You compare what that rate was for a loan consultant, which was higher than usual, location, and then the job itself, which is a big job, we've said it. I would expect it to be like at the very least. I thought saying 165 was like a little bit embarrassing. I'm like, it's quite low.
Me,
So,
myself, if I was guessing, I would have guessed this between 175 and 200.
right?
Because it's a big job. It's a big job. And this person will have access to a ton of proprietary data that is extremely sensitive. They'll have access to a lot of proprietary knowledge inside the regulatory process that, if you found the right criminal organization and said, guess what, guys, I can guarantee you a system that all of your shenanigans will get through this organization. Like, let's just get me a $500,000. That could be a huge risk. So like paying this level, I think it's a little bit low. I think that they should be paying more to mitigate risk of things like that from happening. But reference check, blah, blah, blah. Like there are all those factors that are kind of in play that are designed to mitigate this too, right? But I thought that they were underpaying as well for a role this important.
And they're asking for people management experience as well. 7 years. You don't get to 7 years of people management experience and not have like a kind of higher salary band. So that's another additional responsibility. Managing people is a huge responsibility and should get paid accordingly. Yeah, I was going to say something else and I completely forgot. Oh, when you're an applicant for these kinds of roles, this is another data point to think about. Think about this role level and the salary band, and think about your career pathway at that organization, right? It doesn't take too much mathemizing. Is that a word?
It's Monday word for sure.
Mathemizing, thank you. It is now. To calculate, maybe it's just calculate, maybe that's the word.
I need to take a note on the use of the word mathemizing and note down that it's like March 9th, because that is going to be the next thing that goes up on our branded coffee cups.
My face is turning red. I'm not good at math, and so it's not a big surprise that I don't know how to say math words either. So it doesn't take much to calculate. Okay, here's my career progression. In a few years, could I be, is there a senior director role? Is there this like CAMLO role or whatever I could move into? Like, how much are they making then? It's not going to be that much. You're not going to be like rolling in it. And for some people, this sounds terrible, because for some people, this is a lot of money, and it is at the end of the day. But you just have to think about your career progression at that organization. And if you have some aspirations that you would like to reach financially, is this the place that's going to get you there? Maybe with a bonus, but we don't know. We don't have that information. So,
yeah. And the thing that would go into that is like, what are the conditions you need to satisfy to qualify for a bonus? Like bonuses in organizations and roles that are driven by sales, it's very easy for those bonuses to get very, very, very big. Like kill it on the sales side, blow all your targets out of the water, reward with a big old bonus. What are the things that go into a bonus for a compliance type role where you're forcibly removed from sales and marketing and everything that generates revenue? So like, are you incentivized on the number of whack-a-moles that you whack with your big mallet? Like, how does that work? Because intuitively in the organization, there isn't going to be a lot or any monetary value assigned to strict compliance, nothing direct. The monetary value comes from mitigating risk. That's very difficult to calculate the value of that, at least in like a performance bonus kind of context.
Absolutely. I agree. And I have forever been in roles that are not associated with like any type of revenue generation at all. And so you do feel that much further removed from having any kind of say in like what that pool is going to look like. And it is a little bit difficult. And again, I'm not expecting them to list how their bonuses are calculated in a job posting, but interesting conversations to have down the road.
Yeah. All right, folks, we are going to take a short intermission to give Jen time to properly go through the job post. and we will be back right after that to bring down the final scores. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, we're back. We have gone through the job post, and I think that we are in a position now to render final verdicts and give this bad boy a score. Jen, thinking about the job post by itself, just the job post as it's written, what would you score this and why?
I like the job posting. I think that they have a lot of the information we need to know, that candidates should know, things like whether or not it's an existing position, is it a new position, the reporting structure. It does list a salary. It does disclose AI. It has a lot. I prefer more information than less. And it is quite long. There are a lot of the responsibilities. A lot. I'm just scrolling through right now. So I think for the job posting itself, I would say it's an 8-ish out of 10 for me. It's not bad at all. What about you?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too. On how the job post was written, I would give it a 7. I'd give it a little bit less. And the things that really stood out for me with the structure of this job post and how it did its job kind of communicating the role to the candidate is tons of acronyms. That was kind of strike number 1 against it. And you can absolutely make the argument that for someone who has this level of experience, they're just going to know these acronyms because they're so baked into this industry and what this person's been doing their entire career that it's a non-issue. But for me, it's still kind of a problem. Yeah. There is ambiguity. Like for us, CCO, Chief Commercial Officer, Chief Compliance Officer, don't know. Little bit of ambiguity there. The other thing that kind of stuck out for me that tended to make me score this a little bit less is non-localized stuff. So again, we're talking about like, hey, Montreal's top 100 employers or whatever it was, that award rolls in Toronto. Who cares, right? Like they did say that Toronto bike share was the thing, so that's localized. But when we were looking at the one a couple of weeks ago in St. John's, it also said Toronto bike share. And I made the comment back then, like, what are you going to do? Hop on your jet and like come to Toronto to pick up your bike share and then go back to the Rock after you're done with that? Like, no, of course not. It's irrelevant. Keep it out. We saw that again with this post where it said, hey, there's an in-office gym in Montreal. And
but not for you.
But it wasn't in Toronto.
Yeah.
So it's like, why put that stuff in at all? It's irrelevant. And for some people, it's going to kind of be an issue. They're going to be like, why do I care about that? Or they're going to be like, why are you so sloppy? Why should I work for an organization that is sloppy with the way they communicate this stuff? So 7 out of 10 for me for that. Now, thinking about the role design, and this is kind of the fun part to talk about, the way that this role is structured and designed as it's written out in the job ad, how would you score that out of 10? Because that's very different from the job ad itself.
Two very different things. And when we broke to fully review the job posting, it actually pissed me off even more that the salary is as low as it is. Because again, like you shared highlights and really good highlights, but it is quite detailed. There are a lot of responsibilities. And again, there's managing a team, compliance operations team as well. So that dual reporting structure, all those deputies, like what's their deal? What role do they play in this whole thing? How do they impact me in this role? How are they supporting me? How are they holding me back? Who knows? That is a lot of personalities to navigate in terms of who you're reporting into. And it's hard enough to do that with one person. So to have like the kind of like crew of people, that's how it feels. I know they're not explicitly saying you also report to these deputy people, but like, let's be real, it's going to be that way. And everyone's going to have their opinions. Yeah, I would say that, I don't know. I would probably give it like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 for that. It's so hard to say. This is the one where it's a little bit just, I mean, a little bit, a lot of assumptions need to be made because there's so much information that we don't have. So I would say a 5 or a 6. They must have their reasons why they have this weird reporting structure. But, and then the pay to me is not, it's misaligned with location and job scope, responsibilities, all of that stuff, being a people manager. So for that, 5-ish.
Yeah, I was pretty critical on the role design too. 5 for me, and kind of echoing, pardon me, kind of echoing some of the things that you'd said, like the dual reporting thing. That's going to be tough to navigate. There's that level of ambiguity that is it chief commercial officer or is it chief compliance officer? Makes a heck of a lot more sense if it's chief compliance officer. But still having a dual reporting structure is going to be a challenge. Like there's going to be less ethical tension about the money making if this is reporting to a chief compliance officer and a chief money laundering officer. But the same question kind of comes up. Whose opinion matters most when it comes time for you to sit down for your performance review, right? What if you piss off the CCO a little bit too much? Is the CAMLO going to be able to say, no, they've actually done really good work, so let's give them, the higher end of the range? Don't know. That's going to be tough to navigate. Another thing that kind of was a negative for me in this role design is the level at which this person is going to be expected to be split into different areas and be high performing. So they need to be a people manager, right? But they haven't said how many people you're going to be managing in any kind of effective way. So you don't know if you are managing a small team of like 1 or 2 people for like operational issues, or if you're managing a team of managers who are managing people, or if you're just managing a big group of people that's like 20 or 30 or 50 or whatever, maybe with some supervisory support. You have no idea, right? And those are very, very different things. Plus, on top of that people management, you've also got to manage technology vendors. And one of the things that Jen and I didn't talk about in this role in the episode that you can see if you hit the episode page and kind of browse through it for yourself is that this person is going to be responsible for sourcing and implementing serious technology systems that have to do with compliance and anti-money laundering. So they're picking the system, they're managing the IT relationships around that system, meaning that they're managing the people, whether they're internal or external, who maintain that system, and other people. There's so much that's stacking together in this role. I don't think it's a viable, sustainable role for someone long-term, which is maybe why there's been someone turn out of it recently, because it did say that this is for an existing vacant role in the organization. Maybe that person burned out, and I would not be shocked if that was what happened. This is a big, big role. Salary, 120 to 150 grand, tons more money than a lot of people make, tons more money than most people make, but it is not a lot of money for the importance of this role relative to the organization and to mitigate the risk of harm that this role could cause if the person in it goes a little bit sideways. So 5 out of 10 for me, for sure, on this. It needs some work. It needs a bit of a rethink.
Absolutely. And sorry, I know we already rated, but I have one more. You made me think of something else. When you look at your career progression, in this role, you're director of compliance operations, reporting to C-level type roles. So that tells me that that's a big jump. And there is no in between. There's no senior director, then VP, then senior VP. It's just this role and then those chief roles. So where are you going to grow to? You have to think about that as well. Where are you going to grow to? It would be one of their roles if they were to leave. But that's a huge leap. So there aren't those kind of like stepping stones to get you to where you might want to go in your career. It's like you and then long time, then the chief role. And so I think, and the reason why we know this is because otherwise you would be reporting into the senior director or the VP of, or whatever. So again, there's that story there that you just need to sit with the job postings a little bit more and think about all of these things when you're reading through and what it is that you want to get from the job. And again, place of privilege. Some people, you take the job that you can get totally fine, but eyes wide open.
No, you're right. This is a ceiling role in this
Yeah.
organization. You're not going anywhere up unless it's into the C-suite, and it's pretty darn rare that somebody at a director level position in an organization gets placed into a C-suite position. Because, like, remember that in large organizations, people for C-suite positions are nominated to the board, and then the board makes the final decision and says yes or no. It's not like the CEO is going to come down to your office one day and say, hey, I want you to be our new Cam Lowe. You start on Monday. That's not a thing. There's a nomination process and the board's got to approve it.
Absolutely. And with an organization like that, I can't remember now what we said the employee count was, quite high.
1,001 to 5,000. Yeah, it's big enough.
It's a big organization. Some people in those senior roles aren't going anywhere until they retire. I worked at a huge corporation nationwide, and some people in the roles at their senior level, and even when I say senior level, we're talking like they're at director level, had been there for like 20 years. That's their retirement plan. They're not going anywhere. Like, over their cold dead body are they going to leave that job? And so you have to think about that too. Like, well, how many more years does so and so have? They're going to stay here long term. Why are they going to leave? And for so many reasons, right? Their own comfort level, they're close to retirement, or they are at a certain
job
age.
Security.
Job security. They're not going to go job hunting all of a sudden at, like, I don't know, 57 years old. Maybe. I say that now that I'm only like 10 years away from that. So perhaps, but it gets riskier. So you need to look at that too. I mean, it sounds weird, but look at the age of the people that you would be reporting into at that leadership table, and just think to yourself, well, in 5 years, where do I want to be? And maybe it's right where you were when you applied for the job, and that's okay. But if you want more than that, this might not be the place that's going to make that happen for you.
Yep. I think the consensus opinion here is that the job ad was better than the role design, and we can indeed consider this post roasted.
Yep.
See you next week, everybody.